opened up the event with the HBO Now announcements. We're going to be talking a little bit about that, but mostly about the MacBook and the Apple Watch. But actually, first, I want to say who we're joined with. We have got myself, Pete Patchell, our tech editor, Chris Taylor, our deputy editor, and of course Lance Ulanoff, our chief correspondent. So Lance, I actually want to throw it off to you first and tell us a little bit about the event, what the experience was like, and kind of walk us through what it was like this time and how the presentation was. It was the same Apple Fair? Was there anything different going on? Tell us about it.
Well, it's funny because I kept thinking that the event started off in a similar way. You either have them in Cupertino, California at their headquarters, or you'll have them at the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, which is right in the heart of San Francisco, which is actually a slightly larger venue. That's usually that they choose, not necessarily based on the importance of the event, but I think depending on how many they're going to invite and maybe a little bit of the makeup of the product introductions, but. Everything kind of was going according to plan. They did sort of, Tim Cook, I would say, got on stage and mixed things up a little bit in that he started with Apple TV, which, while not getting a hardware update, did get a price drop and did have, obviously the big news, the HBO Now stuff. So that was, for a lot of people, that's very important, but it also felt like he was backing into the story. I sat there thinking, okay, I know this is an Apple Watch event, so isn't that the centerpiece? But he didn't get to that for a little while. And, of course, then we have the big reveal of the MacBook. And I think that was one that Christina and I argued about, the fact that there would not be.
We did not think it was going to happen. I mean, I'll be totally upfront.
You did not, right.
And, I did not. Lance thought there might be. I thought they were going to do the spec upgrade, which they did do to the MacBook Air and to the Mac Pro. Yes. I thought that was going to happen. I did not think that they would be doing a brand new device. Lance felt more confident that they might, so I was totally wrong on that. Sorry, go on, Lance.
Well, I think that really, what that says is that Apple will, if they're going to invite all this media and all these people out to something, they can't simply tell you more about a product they've already introduced. They had to bring something new to the table. So we had that shiny, literally shiny new object. One of the versions is gold. And you had more information in detail about the Apple Watch. And, of course, right after that, you have the demo area where they allow you to go in and touch the products. And the big difference this time was that there were a whole bunch of fully functioning Apple Watches in there that you got to play with. And there were a lot of MacBook, new MacBooks. I have to stop myself every time from saying MacBook Air.
Same.
It's like the MacBook quintessence.
Yeah, and that quintessence, it is, it may be, you feel like with the MacBook, they may be getting to a point where after this, what else can they do except show you yet another iPad? I mean, it's only a half-pound heavier than the original iPad, the 1.5-pound iPad they introduced in 2010, which is, I think, kind of notable. But yeah, there was excitement around the event. I think that a lot of people walked away being for some reason more jazzed about the MacBook than they were about the Apple Watch. And I think that has a lot to do with, on the watch side, a lot of people not sure whether or not they want it. I mean, that's a question mark for people. And on the MacBook, it's ultimately everybody uses laptops.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody is using them. So it's a product that
except you, Lance. Just really. I use a tablet.
No, you use a laptop that could be a tablet.
My Surface Pro 3, right. That's right. And my Surface Pro 3 is most often compared directly to the
Oh, you're breaking up, Lance.
and I hear it.
It did sort of feel like this was the Apple's response to the Surface, though. So it's interesting that you bring that up. It was very much a sort of entry-level, get you out of iOS and into the Mac ecosystem kind of device.
Totally. I totally agree with that, Chris. I think you're dead on. And actually, let's get kind of right into the MacBook. I'm gonna go to you in just a second, Pete. But let's actually get right into the new MacBook. Pete, why don't you give us a little bit of kind of a rundown about what it is and what makes it so special?
Well, it's what makes it special is that it's Apple's sort of vision of where computing's going, and it's a sort of an emphasis of where computing's been going for a while, which is fewer connectors, thinner, lighter designs, and it's even fanless, which is new thing that's made capable by the new Intel Core M chips, which came out last fall. We've only seen a few machines using this chip, which is kind of in between mobile and their more powerful core processors, which you find in most laptops. But the cool thing is, it sort of gives you the power of a last year's laptop for without any fan, which actually makes these form factors super thin. So one of the not too surprising things that Apple did with this is that they stripped down virtually all the connectors. There's one jack, just one, and it's the USB Type-C connector, which is the new thing. Apple contributed a number of engineers, along with Google, Microsoft, and others, to develop this standard. So everybody's on board with it, all the majors. And this is going to be the connector of the future. It's very much like the Lightning connector, honestly, because it's reversible. So pretty soon, gone will be the days of accidentally putting a USB cable in the wrong way, and that frustration is going away. But the thing is, it's the one connector in this. I mean, there's a headphone jack, sure, but that barely counts. So, you know, as we've sort of pointed out in some articles, well, you know, if you're actually going to use this thing for real work, you're going to be kind of dongle of hell if you want to extend to another display, if you want to hook up your USB devices. So really, this laptop, and you know, we've talked about this a lot, and this is not a new observation, but it's, you know, it's kind of what the MacBook Air was when it originally came out. It's pointing the way, even though in the present it feels a little weird. And it's not, again, this isn't the Pro. There's going to be a Pro MacBook redesign at some point, which will have USB-C, which will also probably have other ports. So we don't have to panic that all of our machines are only going to have one port. Right. This is the here's what the future is, everyone. Laptop. Of course, it has Retina, of course, because everything's Retina now. That's a given. I mean, that was a given a year ago. But it's important to note, just because Apple's regular Airs are not Retina.
It's not, exactly.
And I'm kind of like, I see this, that they're probably actually going to phase out the Air eventually, and this is the Air.
This is the new Air. Yeah, no, I was going to say, go on, Lance. But I was just going to agree with you.
Yeah, Lance wants to jump in. He's going to blow gas here.
Go on, Lance.
No, I was just, you know, I was very interested in the port discussion because, you know, I have a very strong recollection of all the various ports that have gone, the legacy ports that have come and gone, parallel port, serial port,
SCSI
port, SCSI. You know,
SCSI for the win.
FireWire 400, FireWire 800.
Every time, especially when the USB port came along, you know, people freaked out. Oh my God, I will never, you know, because the legacy device, they don't want to do, you know, all these adapters. And they always, especially when there is broad-based support in the industry, they become the standard. So, you know, I give Apple credit for being part of the consortium as opposed to going out their own way. I mean, we all remember sort of the FireWire battle, like Apple and Sony going one direction, everybody else going another direction. So it's good to see this, and all that means for people watching this is you will someday be using USB-C, period.
Well, one thing it does mean, unfortunately, and I'm sad about this, is MagSafe is going away.
Right.
That's too bad, because MagSafe was actually a good idea and actually provided real value and convenience to people.
Yeah, well, MagSafe is going away for the Air and for the current, I guess, Pros. The thing with USB-C is that it can only power up to, I think, 85 watts. So it's powerful enough, I guess, for maybe like a 13-inch MacBook Pro would be good enough for. But like of the 15 inches, it's not going to be able to push enough power from USB-C. So you'll still have MagSafe on that. But yeah, you're right, Pete. I mean, eventually, and I'm sure with future revisions, they'll get through that. But yeah,
I'm working on right now, the Chromebook Pixel 2. I took a picture for everyone.
Nice.
That's it. Yeah.
It's a Core i5, and it is powered by USB-C. So it gives you an indication of that. You know, it's not. It does pretty well. But you're right. Yeah, it goes up to a certain wattage you know. There are stats and specs on this.
Right, totally. No, the only reason I mentioned that is because I know that for the Mac Pros, I think that they have like a 90-watt power adapter, and I think, but for instance, the 13-inch can use the MacBook Air charger without a problem, and I think the MacBook Airs are like 55 or 65 or something. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, you're right. MagSafe kind of going away. It's kind of a bummer. This is not the first time Apple has made the decision to get rid of ports. Famously with the original MacBook Air, which we keep comparing, you know, this to, and I think because it's as Pete said, it's not really, it's a common observation that a lot of us have had. They got rid of the DVD drive, and that was a huge move, no optical drive. But they also only had a single USB port on it, and it had an SD card slot. So what's interesting, I think, is that, and I would love to hear you guys' take, this first iteration only has one USB-C port, but I totally expect that future revisions, they'll probably wind up adding a second port just to give it more extensibility. This is very, it seems to me anyway, to be very classic Apple, where you kind of do this thing and it's kind of like giving people a dose of bad tasting medicine. They freak out about it, and then slowly but surely over time, they'll make it work better for people once it becomes clear that this is going to become the future of computing. What do you think, Chris?
It's funny because Apple did so many things at this event that were sort of classic Apple and
Yes.
not in a good way. And sometimes they can become caricatures of themselves and they don't seem to realize it. And this was definitely one of those instances. Just the one port and having it be power and having it be USB connection, and not even realizing or acknowledging or making some joke about the fact that we're going to all have to go out and buy new dongles. That a whole mini industry is going to arrive of USB-C, dongle makers, and we'll get bad knockoffs from China. I mean, at least tell us this is it. This is the last time we're going to have to go.
Oh, it's never the last.
But it's never the last time. Come on.
Like they would ever tell. Well, you know what? It would sell better if Johnny Ive told us it was the last time, or like anything he said. You're like, oh, that sounds good.
Future-proof.
The other thing that they did related to the MacBook that is classic Apple is not giving it a name.
Right.
And confusion that is going
Very
to appear in the
interesting.
marketplace is just insane. And it reminds me, I don't know if you guys remember the third iPad.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just the new iPad. The new
I didn't know
iPad.
what to call it.
They called it the new iPad, is what Apple
new
called it.
iPad.
They called it
Yeah,
the new
it was
iPad.
just iPad, and I mean that was just
First one was the iPad. It doesn't make any sense.
Then it was the iPad 2, then it was the new iPad, and then it was like the iPad 4th generation. Yeah.
yes.
Well, it was the new
Yeah.
iPad at the event when they did it.
Well,
This
they
is
were
the new
gonna,
MacBook. I mean.
Right. Why didn't they call it the MacBook you don't have yet?
Well, the MacBook Plus. So I mean, if this is something that is designed to bring in the iOS owning audience, the kind of people who are already used to choosing between space gray and gold and slate or whatever the third color is, then maybe it needs a more friendly name for that audience. Maybe the MacBook S. I don't know.
Is that who it's for, though, Chris, do you think? I want to kind of go around with you guys. Who do you think this is aimed at? Because I don't know if I hadn't actually considered that they were trying to aim the iOS-only toting public. I was thinking this is more like the mid-level MacBook. This is for the people who are on the road a ton, want a super portable laptop that they prioritize portability and battery over everything else.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's more of
speed and
a
over
play
power.
laptop than a work laptop. I mean, right now this is for people who are early adopters. Yeah, absolutely. If you're doing work, you're doing either a 13-inch Air
I
or
kinda
a
do
Pro.
too.
No, you get this, and it's like this is kind of like, okay, well, this is fun. I like the portability and stuff, but I'm not really beginning doing like a ton of serious stuff because connecting to external stuff is a hassle with dongles and whatnot. And it just doesn't have the power. It's a core engine.
I totally disagree because honestly,
use this at
you've
work?
got a big shock. I disagree because they really pressed hard on the idea of a wireless future. This is a forward-leaning laptop. I believe in a wireless future. I'm sitting here with a device. I'm not plugged into anything. It does have the Surface Pro 3 has a sort of do-it-all one, both power and data port similar to USB-C. But the other reason is full-size keyboard. They spent a lot of time talking about that keyboard, the butterfly technology under those keys, the individual LED lights for every key. These are features, even the Force Touch, or as they call it on the laptop, they also call it Force Click, and the large touchpad. This is all about productivity. This is a lot of focus on the quality of that keyboard and touchpad experience. That, to me, speaks to productivity. And by the way, if they really were to go for fun, why didn't they finally do it and make it a touch screen? because
Right.
this is so close in some ways to the iPad form factor and style, and it's something I said to a couple of Apple people, and they just like looked at me like,
I
that's
think
never
you're
going to happen.
misunderstanding what I mean by fun. I'm not saying it's an iPad and you're going to be gaming on this thing. I'm just saying this isn't something I'm going to buy as a person who does a lot of work on a Mac as my primary work Mac. I'm always going to go with a Pro.
I feel like
I would
that's
say it's not going to be a primary work Mac, but what if this was like your travel Mac? Like for instance, like what if you had like your MacBook Pro rather, like your 15-inch or your 13-inch Pro, at the office, that's your main machine, but this is like becoming your new travel machine.
I wouldn't take it for doing serious conferences or stuff, whatever like that. No, I'd take it if I was on vacation and I wanted to, where I wanted to write, or I wanted to
test, right?
dash off emails, or have some, show off some photos to people. That's what I do. That's what I get for this, because the Retina screen. But if I was really doing work, no, I'd take my Pro.
I understand that, Pete, and I think that to a certain extent, what you're doing is you're taking the realistic view of the features and what's there. But without a doubt, Apple didn't market it that way. That was not how they positioned it during the event. I think that it would be awesome, when we finally get our hands on this device, to do exactly that test.
Yes.
How is this as a true work device? Because that's going to make a big. And also the pricing is not the fun or more casual
entry-level
device.
When is
Apple
pricing ever fun and casual?
I could get
right, but I think that's
Air.
what the Air is. The Air is now the cheap one.
Right. So
for
sad.
Apple. That
seems sad to say that.
It is. Well, it's like the Air is the new MacBook. The MacBook is the new MacBook Air.
Well, the Air gets you 12 hours of battery life. This one gets you 9.
Well, right. Well, but this is
or 10 with video.
Or 10 with video, and this is the Retina screen. I don't know. I feel like this is the sort of machine where it's not going to be anybody's primary work machine today. This is going to be like the second computer for people who have a lot of money.
Neither was the first Air.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's pointing the way, but I'm not getting this thing for work.
Oh, and I agree with that. I'm saying I guess I'm taking. I think I kind of agree with both of you, and that I see like a long-term play at this, where this will be people's second computer first, or if you're my mom, like she was texting me during the Apple event and was like, "This is my next laptop." It's perfect for her.
I just happen to have. You know what's going to sell the most of this thing? The gold one.
Absolutely.
Yes. People are going to buy the gold. I got the new MacBook.
Look at me. It'll be like the black book. You guys remember?
San Francisco.
You guys remember the black?
Starbucks on my new MacBook.
I just happen to have Tim Cook standing here. I'm going to ask him.
Yes.
He's off camera. Mr. Cook, what was your intention with this MacBook?
Well, Lance, I can't do it.
I can make calls on my wrist.
What I've wanted since I was a child.
Yeah, it's like,
what are we talking about?
I have always thought
we gotta get to the why.
Of having a gold MacBook that I could work on, and this is it.
Amazing.
You sound like Bill Clinton.
I did not.
It's a very similar voice.
It is a very similar voice.
Yeah, and any analysis will tell you that. Yeah, no, I really think this is, just before we move on to this topic, and we're going to move on and talk about, I think they launched some sort of wrist-based wearable.
Yeah, who cares?
This is, was like page 15 news.
The very first thing, so they introduced this with a video, right? And the very first thing you see is the back. And I could have sworn we were going to see a newer, larger iPad because it looked exactly like the reverse of the iPad. It focused in on the Apple. It seemed sort of kind of raised at the back, and I really think, we've seen reports that the larger iPad is going to happen, but it's been delayed. I very much think this is what we're getting instead, and it is that sort of lusting device. And it's interesting, your mother had that reaction of, oh, well, now I can sort of get into this.
Yes, you're dead on. You're dead on. No, you're absolutely right. My mom, for those who don't know, no one in the audience would, but she loves her iPad more than anything, and she has a 13-inch MacBook Pro, but it's too big and heavy for her. She calls it her Big Mac. And now what she's been looking at getting, I know, but she's been wanting to get a MacBook Air, but now that this is coming out, this is what she's going to get. This is perfect for her. So I think you're absolutely right, Chris. And actually, I totally agree with you too. I think that I've never believed the iPad Pro rumors. Lance and I disagree about this, but I've never thought that was happening. I think you're dead on, Chris. I think that this is instead what the supply chain leak was. The panel was not for a 12-inch iPad. It was for this thing.
Apple faked us out again.
They did.
Tim Cook. Oh, I'm sorry. He's standing over in the corner.
All right. Can we talk
Okay.
about the other thing?
Planning on getting one before we move on to the Apple Watch? Is anybody here planning on getting the new MacBook, and of course in gold?
I would
Next
not
year.
get a gold. I would
Next
not get
year.
a gold laptop. I would not.
I would totally do it, but I think given that I just bought an iMac 5K, I think my wife would probably kill me.
I definitely. I looked at it and I kind of wanted one. I have to admit, I wanted one of these devices.
I want it and a USB-C hub.
Yes, I was going to say, this is going to become the race, right? We're about to see, you guys, about 500 Kickstarter projects to make the perfect looking USB-C hub that will blend in perfectly with your new MacBook.
It's got to be a gold hub. It's got to be gold.
Oh, people will be doing the gold ones, the slate gray ones, and the aluminums. All right. Well, as we mentioned, as Chris did allude to, there was some other news other than the MacBook as well. I mean, frankly, I think all of us, and Lance touched on this, I think, is the new shiny, that the MacBook was really the exciting thing at this particular conference. But we finally got to learn a lot more about the Apple Watch. And so, Pete, again, I'm going to kind of throw it to you, kind of give us a little heads up about what we learned or didn't learn about this thing, and then I'm going to throw it to Lance for his hands-on impressions. And then Chris is going to tell us, and he's going to lie again, about why he's not buying the Apple Watch. And you're a liar, Chris. You're a liar. But Pete, give us an overview. What did we learn that we didn't know already?
Well, we learned the price.
Yeah.
We found out that it.
And what is the price? Give us.
Well, it does.
The
The Apple Watch Sport starts at $349. You can get the big version for about $399, or I'm just going to round to the nearest.
Sure, $400.
$400. In the regular Apple Watch starts at $550. And also $600, and depending on your band, you can go all the way up to $1,100. So that's a little higher than I think some people were. It's a little higher than I was expecting. I thought, and I probably think I lost this bet with you. That it's going to be it was going to be sub 500 because I thought it was going to be less than the iPad, the regular model. Of course,
I thought it was going to be 500, so it was even high for me. I guessed 500, but it was 550. Where it started, yeah.
The Apple Watch Edition is kind of in its own universe. It's at $10,000 for your solid gold Apple Watch, and you can go up to $17,000. I think that's what people are saying with the right band and the right size. So that's a big thing we learned. We learned a little more about how it works and what apps will be on it at launch. So there's going to be things like Uber. There's going to be Slack, which I'm sure everyone at Mashable is excited about, except Seth Fiegerman.
Exactly.
He wrote a great piece yesterday, by the way, about his Apple Watch nightmare and sort of being always accessible. It's a really good read. We learned a little bit about Apple Pay, and we actually learned that a couple days before when Eddie Q was at another event, but sort of how that's going to work, and that the watch and the phone, when it's on your wrist, it's sort of unlocked and authenticated, so you don't have to do your fingerprint thing every time you do Apple Pay, which actually makes a lot of sense. From a security standpoint, because unless someone is like grabbing your whole arm somehow and pulling it over something, there's probably very little security risk. What else did we learn? We learned the battery life, which is 18 hours, but there's a lot of nuances and caveats in terms of how much apps and how much sort of calls you can take on it, but for regular use, 18 hours. So it's an all-day thing, which we kind of were expecting based on sort of stuff had previously been said. And we know when it's on sale. It's going to be April 24th. Pre-order start, I believe, April 10th. And it's controversial.
It is controversial.
I must have missed something, though. What did I miss?
Yeah, it seems like you covered most of it.
I think you got the highlights. Yeah, it is controversial. How do we feel about the battery life? 18 hours. Who here thinks that's enough? Show of hands. Who thinks it's enough?
It's never enough.
You'll notice, audience, that no one is raising their hands. None of us think that it's enough.
Yeah, absolutely shocking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that it's this low, but I won't lie. It's a little disappointing that it's only 18 hours, and that, as Pete said, is with a ton of caveats. Now, Lance, you actually got hands-on with the watch. You did some great finds. You got to use the interface. At the last event, they basically just kind of had it, there where you could sort of touch it. And Chris, when he attempted to even put it on his wrist, Apple rebuffed him, and they were like, no, you're not clasping it right. You can't take photos anymore. Get out of here.
Step away from the watch, sir.
they were like, step away from the watch, you're not allowed. But now they finally had a real product, and it wasn't just, a cobbled together demo unit. So tell us about your first impressions and what you think, especially since, you wear the Pebble Steel, you've used the Android Wear devices, you've used the Galaxy, the Gear devices. So tell us about what you think about the watch now that you've actually had it on your wrist and you've got to play with it.
Well, as I wrote in my hands-on, it feels better than you would expect on your wrist. It's not. If you look at the watch, obviously it has the sensor, sort of this. I don't know. It's like ceramic glass or sapphire glass on the back, and it doesn't have a curve, and you think, oh, maybe that's not going to feel like good, but in the demo room, I was able to put it on. They would walk you through. They have, as usual, they have lots of people sort of there, guiding us, and I watched her do it, and I sort of did it to understand, because there's different gestures. It's got the digital crown, and it's got the button, and it has the touch screen on the interface, the screen that you touch and swipe. Which is actually, if you've worn any smartwatches, you'll be kind of familiar with this idea of swiping up and down, left and right. One of the things that I learned is that with Apple Watch and developers, it's up to them how they implement the way you navigate about in the apps. With Instagram, when I was sort of scrolling through the pictures, at one point I wanted to scroll back to go back to the original sort of screen or the previous screen. You couldn't do that because that's not how they implemented the interface. Yet if you're in another app, there's a lot of side scrolling, back side to side. So there's these nuances that you kind of get used to. The device, that I got to wear in there, looked good. I think I had on maybe the 42 millimeter, which you see in the video. There's that smaller size as well. There were things you couldn't really test in the demo room because it was too loud. I couldn't test, making a phone call or Siri. And I think I note there that obviously that's the thing that I'm not the most unsure about is talking to my wrist. Do I want to talk to my wrist and have people staring at me? I think everyone's used to, oddly enough, everybody's used to people now walking down the street talking to themselves because they have something in their ear, or as I'm doing right now, they're wearing their headphones. But hey, hey Dick Tracy, there's a crime on 47th Street, and so I'm not sure yet. But it was. I mean, at least as I was trying to explain the hands-on, I feel like I understood the product better. And I could see the places where they were part of the sort of smartwatch world and where they were trying to do more. But, things like Apple Pay, obviously, we can't test there. So, hopefully at some point we'll get to test that out in the real world. But, so, there's still, for as much as we learned in the key details, the pricing and availability, there's still so much we don't yet know.
Right. Now, and as a watch guy, because you're a watch guy in addition to being kind of a smartwatch guy, what did you think of the materials? How did it feel compared to other things? Especially, I think that the kind of the Apple Watch edition, the non-sport model, that's in the $500 to $700 price range, thereabouts. That's about the same price as, kind of a moderately priced, watch that normal watch people would consider cheap and just, get to wear for a couple of years. How did it feel, and is this something that you could see watch lovers or people who enjoy jewelry buying as much as a fashion accessory as a gadget?
Well, I don't know if you guys could see from where you sat during the unveiling. They had what I would call two alloy porn videos. If you're excited by metals, these were the best videos you'd ever seen in your life. How they created these special
alloy porn
materials for these. There's a reason for that. And in the demo room with everybody about, when they put the watch on, I think I was wearing like one of the stainless steel ones, and they have that watch, the watches I tend to wear, and I have collected a lot of watches, just no matter how thin they are, what shape and size, they have a certain feel and heft to them, which usually comes directly from the material that it's made from, the metal, often metal. Sometimes the watch band, but a lot of times the watch itself, and even if you wear watches, you know the difference between a cheap-feeling plastic crystal and a glass one. And obviously, Apple chose two kinds of. There's the Ion X glass, which is essentially like the same glass that you find, the same kind of process to make the glass on the iPhone 6, which feels good, really good. It's part of the, you got that curve and stuff, so that feels good, obviously. And then they have the Sapphire, which is the next level up, which is the more expensive watches. But those that give you that sense of jewelry. And I think that's really important, that, when you put something like this on, you don't want it to feel cheap. And I think they've paid, obviously, from where we stood in that room, they paid a lot of attention to that. At this point, jury's still out on my overall feelings about whether or not, I feel like it matches up to my other watches. Hopefully, I'll know that at some point.
Now, Chris Taylor has gone on record earlier, and he has said that he is not going to be getting the Apple Watch. And then he doubled down and wrote an op-ed saying, "Sorry, I'm not buying the Apple Watch." He's saying, "I waited until the iPhone 3GS. I'm going to wait on this thing too." So, Chris, tell us why what we've seen has not swayed you, and explain to us why you're a liar, because you're totally going to be getting one. I'm totally going to see you with one. I don't care. And what you say, but explain to us why you're still not sold on this idea.
I actually I might now be prepared to say that I will never get an Apple Watch. I'm not quite there yet.
The hedging already starts. The hedging already starts.
But no, I never. I mean, I was going to say third generation, but the more I think about this, the more I think never. Okay, look, here's the only gold device I'm ever going to have on my wrist, right? It's rose gold, by the way. It's not $10,000. But here's the problem. Okay, first of all, Apple seems to be trying to convince us that it's rescinded Moore's law, and that this thing is not going to be as obsolete as the original iPhone within a year, that it's not going to look like a brick on your wrists. It has seemed to double down on the worst thing that people think about Apple, which is these are overpriced devices for the 1%, and that is sort of the center of my complaint about the Apple Watch, that they by leading with the news about the $10,000 gold version, even if that's not what most people are going to get, this looks like what I'm afraid I have to call a very douchey object.
You heard it here first, folks. If you buy an Apple Watch, you are a douchebag.
No,
Chris Taylor of Mashable.
I'm making an important
Sorry, what did he call them? I'm busy playing notes on my Android Wear smartwatch.
See, that's that's a more that's a more 99% device, really. I mean,
ooh, all right. That's like a Wayne Gretzky of smartwatches.
Okay, seriously, Taylor, are you saying that this? I mean, that looks good, but you're seriously saying that the Android Wear, put it up again, Pete. You're seriously saying that this game watch, this right here, looks less douchey than an Apple Watch? Are you actually making that argument?
I'm saying that
I'm trying to make it as douchey as possible.
If you have an Apple Watch that even looks even vaguely like the 10-karat gold, or how many carats of gold is in this device?
18.
You're going to be at risk.
18-karat gold.
18 karat. There we go.
I wouldn't.
Check it out.
Chris,
you're going to be at risk.
I wouldn't worry.
This watch goes to 11, folks.
$10,000. I don't think we have to worry.
No.
I don't think we worry about seeing anybody.
No, I was going to say, do you know anyone who lives in Dubai? Do you know anyone who sits on oil reserves? No, and I'm not joking. Like, people in Dubai are going to go crazy for it. People who are of that persuasion, who are the elite, who are Kim Kardashian's going to have 5, Kanye West will give them out as party favors. These are the people who will have the $10,000 Apple Watches. Everyone else is going to be the sport or the regular.
And it's going to look so dumb. I mean, it needs this. We need to understand this is a relatively disposable object.
Sure.
Right. We're all going to have to get new ones in 2 years' time anyway, even if we actually purchase this thing. But let me move on to the other reason. I'm going to move on to the physical.
Chris, just as somebody who collects and owns a lot of watches, I disagree. I don't think that is really the case with this device. I I just don't sense that's the plan here. You know, the pricing even just makes me think that's not the plan. So, yeah,
Okay.
we're talking a different kind of device.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. But let me move on to the second part of my objection here, and I'm going to demonstrate what it looks like
Ooh, look at
if
it.
I'm standing in the street looking at all the notifications on my Apple Watch. You see
Mm-hmm.
how maybe you can't see how much how obnoxious I've become by kind of moving my elbow here.
Okay.
On a
Are you
standing
more
cycle.
obnoxious than looking like this?
Yeah, well, at least there. Look here, my silhouette is small. My
So you
overall
have an elbow issue with the Apple
space.
Watch.
So right, I was
There's
gonna
an
say.
elbow
So is
issue.
it the elbow? It's the elbow.
How many people are going to be elbowed in the side by people stopping in the middle of the street to check the notification on their Apple Watch? Okay,
Man,
How many
probably
people? How many
no more
people?
fewer than the people running into me
Yes,
with their heads
walking.
down in their freaking phones and
problem
just
number 3.
not
Okay,
paying
look.
attention.
All right, all right, all right, all
I
right. Go
just,
on,
I
Chris.
just, I just changed the time. Obviously, we had a time change this weekend. I have an analog watch. I have to advance it an hour, right? Okay. What I do
Old
to do
tech.
that thing, nobody changes the time on their wrist, right? Because it's an activity that takes what a minute and a half to advance it in an hour at most, maybe 30 seconds. But you take it off to do that. So how are you going to operate your Apple Watch on your wrist the whole time? Nobody actually wants to keep their wrist like this the whole time. It's exhausting. If you've ever held a champagne glass for that long, waiting for someone to actually give a toast, you understand.
That's old-fashioned.
That is the weirdest argument I've ever
I was
heard.
gonna say what is gonna.
That is like,
You know, we forget that Chris is not from this country. He's from England, where they're all standing around holding champagne glasses, waiting
going
for
to
the
say.
opportunity to toast people.
You guys
To
just
you,
wait.
Chris. To you, Chris.
You guys just
Oh,
wait.
wait.
You're all going to get Apple Watches, and you're going to come
Yes,
in
we are.
a tennis elbow. You know, the
well,
next
okay,
day
speaking from a little bit of experience using a
Yeah.
smartwatch, that's a non-issue.
Exactly.
You know, it's no more tiring than holding up your phone. Maybe it's slightly more awkward, but you're not doing extended stuff anyway.
But are you using apps for 45 minutes a day as Apple?
But you don't use apps for 45 minutes a day. And honestly, I think that's an aggregate. That's not. They're not saying you're going to be using anything 45 minutes straight. It's not designed for that. That's not what the interface is. It's for glances. They're calling them glances for a reason. Now, that's what a smartwatch is for. And I have a little more hope for the Apple Watch because I've gone on record as not liking Android Wear mainly because of the battery life. I'm going to go on record right now not liking it for a second reason because it just doesn't work. I mean, it's like half the time it doesn't really connect to my phone very well. I mean, the perpetual connecting thing I've seen with every single Android Wear watch, some more than others. The Moto 360 was notorious for just constantly connecting and maybe never reconnecting. And even this one, which was better, this is the LG G Watch R, by the way, has that problem. And so, you know, if it only works half the time, I mean, yesterday was a stunning example of this. I was busy, as I usually am, at home with my 2 children, but, you know, I sometimes wear the watch and for essential things. And one of our colleagues, she was sending me Hangout stuff, and I was getting them on the watch, and I'm trying to respond to her with my voice, which is supposed to work. It's supposed to be this beautiful feature where I can talk to my wrist and relay off a "okay, great" kind of message, and it did not work. I tried again and again. I tried reconnecting. I tried rebooting, and then I'm like, well, why aren't I just working right now doing this and pulling out a laptop? So if the Apple Watch, and Apple is usually pretty good with these things, although if it's Bluetooth-based, it might not be 100% flawless because Bluetooth has its own issues. But Apple is usually pretty good with a kind of user experience. And that kind of convenience of the notification, quick response is, to me, the primary reason for a smartwatch. You know, and you know, you could certainly argue, as Seth has actually very convincingly done in his piece, that even that is kind of philosophically a bad thing. Which, you know, I might, you know, there's times to take off the watch even, in other words. But that, when you want that convenience, it is good to have. So I don't know if it's worth $500. For 200, not bad. I think this one's like 250 or 3. But you know, if you're adding the style on top of that, I could see it being something for some people. I might even do it. It's a little pricey for me right now, though.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Okay, so obviously, so Chris is lying and saying he's not going to get one. But we're going to see him with one anyway. Within a year, Chris is going to have one. I do revise my bet that you probably won't have one by the time I see you next. But you're going to get one within a year. You know you are. You know you are. You're just going to become addicted to it. Lance, you and I are definitely jumping on this train because we're just whores like this. And Pete, you're definitely getting tempted. Which one interests you guys more, the Apple Watch or the Apple Watch Sport Edition? And the reason I ask is because we did find out, and it was not clear earlier, and Apple didn't make it very clear during their event, but all the bands that will be available for all the watches. Some of the bands will only be sold with certain models, but the sport band, the leather band, the Milanese, the loop pip band, the metal bands will all be available for any of the models. So conceivably, it's possible the accents might clash for certain things. They might not all look great, but you could buy the $350 watch and pair it with a more expensive band. So, which model interests you guys more, the Sport or the Apple Watch?
Sport. Stainless steel, aluminum. I don't know. Not really. They seem pretty similar to me. Lance, correct me.
Lance, you've seen them both up close in person. How different do they look up close in person?
What I saw in the demo room, they look like the materials they're made out of. I mean, they definitely have that look. As a watch guy, I always will go for the higher end material. I think that something you're wearing on your wrist, it'll feel better. It's funny, in the office over here, Carissa has her $26 Apple Watch, the knockoff. And I picked that thing up and it weighs nothing. It actually feels hollow on the inside. It's ridiculous. But it made me think that I do want to feel something when I pick up these watches, when I put them on. So, yeah, I would probably be going in the direction of something with a nicer material.
Cool. All right.
Chris isn't getting one.
Chris is not getting one.
I'm getting the invisible edition.
Yeah.
Well, I got to go with the large one, the large Sport, just because my fingers. I was thinking maybe even the small one because it's it's not necessarily guy girl. It's just whatever you kind of want. But I think my fingers are just too big. I mean, they're kind of average size, but I'm a bigger guy,
put those giant sausages down.
Here, look at that. Gosh. And they're right in front of my face, guys.
It's horrible.
Yeah, so there's actually in the Apple Store app now, you can actually see what the real size of the watch and the various models, the various metals look like on your wrist. You can just hold it on top of your wrist and see. It will be a surprise of no one that I'm obviously going to be getting the 38mm version. It still will look big on my wrist.
Which one are you getting though? You're getting the regular?
I don't know. I'm going to have to see them in person to see how big of a difference it is. I think I'm probably going to get the regular with the light pink band, but I don't want to spend $750 on a watch, but I think I kind of have to. But I might end up getting the Sport Edition and then that band, which is $250. So it's basically going to come down to how much I'm going to convince myself to spend an extra $150 to get.
Okay, Christina, can I ask you a question? In fact,
yes.
It's a good question for all of you guys because I'm genuinely mystified by this. What do you guys think is the one app that you will be using the most on the Apple Watch? What is the killer app here?
Weather and maps.
Maps a lot.
What time?
What time is it? What time is it, Siri?
Yeah, no, honestly, weather and maps and transit. I think having a built-in app for transit, like where's the closest train station to just look down and be able to see and then get directions. That honestly is the sort of thing that will change my life.
Interesting. So that's worth $700 to you rather than just taking your phone out of your pocket.
No. I'm clearly a whore for tech and for fashion, and this is as much about me being a label whore and into fashion as anything else.
Christina, you are an early adopter. Stay with me. You are an early adopter. I would like you to stop using that other word. You're an early adopter. This has been a public service announcement from me.
What would be a killer app for me, and there doesn't exist an app right now on Android Wear for this, is not necessarily a running or cycling app, but an actual go-to-the-gym workout app where I can record reps and that kind of stuff easily through my, like, without a phone hooked onto my, that would be good. If someone could design an app that's actually capable of doing that, and I don't have to have my phone on me when I'm actually at the gym, that would be actually pretty huge.
You
And that would
heard
be
it here first, developers.
So yeah,
You need a 10% cut if someone comes up with that.
Yeah.
Maybe
Someone
even an app that just knows that you're at the gym and rewards you for simply being
Oh,
there.
that's next. And what's one thing we haven't really talked about is the unfortunately, it's not the watch itself, is the context-based world that the watch is perfect for and ready for, when you just get notifications for everything automatically on your wrist, but not intrusively. So it sort of knows you as well. But that world is forming around us. It's not quite here yet. It's basically, I forget who wrote the piece on it, but it's the comparable to the Disney Magic Band. That they kind of do that because it's a self-contained world, and they kind of you presupposes a lot of what you want because you're at Disney World. But that is sort of the ultimate vision of the Apple Watch.
Yeah, I love that idea. It does sort of require the entire world to move to the iOS ecosystem, though. I mean,
yeah, and beacons everywhere too. It requires that.
So. Yeah, the fact that this is sort of that this is so unfriendly to Android users, this device, that I mean that's we're not going to get widespread adoption like that, Apple.
Well, not in some places. I mean, we'll see. It depends how good the experience is. I mean, if it's like, I don't know. I'd have to think up some crazy, great scenarios.
Yeah, people are locked into their, people are locked into their contracts with their Samsung Galaxies, and so they.
Oh no, they're not. T-Mobile will buy your contract.
So will Sprint. So will everybody. Well, but also, I mean, I think that honestly, like, this is one of those things where. I think that Apple is okay going just after the iPhone market, because this is the market of people that tend to spend the most money, that tend to be the earliest adopters, and tend to be the most brand loyal. It's an easier sell than, say, Samsung selling the Gear, where it can only work with Samsung phones. When granted they have the majority of Android sales now, but but it only works with a select number of models. I mean, it's a risk. I think I agree with you, Chris, but I kind of disagree that it's that much of a risk, because I think in this case they want it to be a unique. They want it to be exclusive. I mean, there's something about owning an Apple Watch that says, yeah, I'm an Apple owner, and honestly, since the apps are what control the watch, it's the things are built into the apps themselves on the phone. It's not as if they're not really separate and native in and of their own right, at least not now. It wouldn't make sense for them to build an entire SDK and support Android from a software level. That's not something Apple's going to do. Even if that was something that they were interested in, that would be an awful lot of work for, frankly, probably not that many more sales.
$150 billion can buy you an awful lot of Android developers and make something like that work. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but Android users are, but I mean, what we've seen, like study after study after study, shows that Apple iPhone users spend more, they're the ones that buy apps, they're the ones that have higher income, they're the ones that have other things, and that's not to disparage Android users, but I'm saying if I'm making a luxury product that I'm selling as jewelry as much as I'm selling it as a gadget, am I going after people who are looking for the cheaper things, or am I going, for the people who I know I can count on as being my customers, and we're going to be wanting to buy this super expensive, frankly, like luxury device?
Sure, if that's the choice, but Apple could have done an all of the above approach. It's not technically infeasible to do something like that, and I'm just saying, missed opportunity for a Trojan horse.
Well, the cynic in me would be saying, like, that vision the dream future we were talking about, where the beacons and everything are involved. I mean, there's a real business model that sort of has yet to emerge really with that technology. But I mean, if you want to get in on Apple's customer base with whatever context-based sort of system of notifications you're going to put in, you're going to have to, pony up something. And
this is true.
That's going to be part of this plan. In the long term. So
I agree.
That's not getting Android in that doesn't help them.
Totally. Now, so I know that we all need to kind of wrap up. Our guys in San Francisco need to head out, so I just want to go ahead and go around the table and get everybody's final thoughts on both the laptop and the watch. Chris, we'll start with you.
Poor Apple Watch. I feel so bad that it got upstaged on its big day. It's like someone announcing an engagement at your wedding. I mean, it was just, it's really bad form on Apple's part to give us something that we all got way more excited about than the watch. And yes, to prove my Apple fanboy credentials, I am still lusting after that laptop. But I maintain I'm not getting the watch. I do not see the use case. I do not see the utility. I see it, in fact, being more obnoxious than simply pulling your smartphone out on a street corner. I think there are going to be lawsuits from people who walking behind people with Apple Watches who get elbowed in the face. And, you heard it here first. Better call Saul on that one. And I'm glad that Apple made something new, and I've sort of been desperate for years for them to do this, to do something with their wealth. So I feel bad kind of ripping them over this, but yeah, it's just not. I don't see it, and I don't see Apple's normal DNA in this product launch. I saw a number of missteps and errors, which seemed very un-Apple-like. And that's disturbing. I'm worried about where this company is going.
Well, that's a great conversation to have at a later time, and this is certainly the first event where it was Johnny Ive's vision of Apple rather than Steve Jobs', and that was very clear. I'm personally very, very excited about the new MacBook. I'm obviously getting an Apple Watch. We'll debate what I'm probably going to write a post about my first world problem conundrum over whether I'm getting the aluminum or the stainless steel, which will be the most obnoxious, douchey post you can imagine, Chris. The only thing that would be douchier is if Mashable doesn't publish it and I instead put it on Medium, in which case it's just like the trifecta of douchiness. Pete, I want to go to you, get your final thoughts.
Well, first, save that for Medium. Okay, first of all, second of all, because I said first, Apple, yes, okay, I'll finally get an Apple TV, thank you. It's funny how the HBO thing was kind of the third-tier news on this, but yes. The MacBook, I'm really kind of the reverse of Chris here, whereas the MacBook, I certainly have my Apple lust for everything they put out, and that's just kind of a default for everybody. But the MacBook, once I look at it, I'm like, well, I don't really want it because I have a USB hub, an external monitor, both at home and here. It's just going to become a dongly mess when I want to do that. And for what I use my stuff for, my MacBooks for, I'm most of the time doing real work. At some point, Photoshop's involved, and it's usually on a bigger screen. So, it's nice. And if I was sort of at the coffee shop all day, doing whatever, as a writer or whatever those people are, I'd want it. But otherwise, no, I don't really need it. It's hot. But I do see the Apple Watch, and from wearing Android Wear, I still believe in the potential of these wearables, even though Android Wear is this half-baked solution that has way too many cooks in the kitchen. So because of Apple's approach, I am very hopeful that this will be finally like the wearable technology that, while it doesn't deliver on a super future of amazing land stuff happening everywhere, it is going to be the first okay, this is at least not a frustrating experience, and it does give me some kind of value add. So I'm gonna like it. So I'm in on the Apple Watch as long as I don't have to pay that much.
Lance, what about you? Take us home.
Well, I love all the different ways we're using the word dongle. Dongly is a new word.
Dongly mess.
Dongleides.
Dongaloids, dongleize. Being at the event, certainly there was a lot of excitement around the MacBook. While I wasn't surprised that they introduced something like that, I think the distance that they went as far as taking it to the future of portable laptop, work technology, that was exciting, and I think it's what people expect of Apple. jury is obviously out on Apple Watch. You know, we've learned more. We hope to learn a lot more about it. It's early in the game here, but the conversation right now obviously has been a lot about MacBook, a little bit about the HBO Go thing. I mean, I think that Apple achieved a real win,
Yes.
having it first on Apple TV. You know, I think you've reminded me more than once, Christina, that Roku has sold a boatload of their devices. I mean,
Yes,
they
they have.
probably have a much bigger installed base. And I'm wondering if they were even considered. So it's just kind of interesting, and obviously they wouldn't consider Amazon their quasi-competitor in a number of spaces. Or I shouldn't say that HBO would, but I don't know. I don't know how Apple convinced HBO to do it, but I thought that was a pretty big deal. I feel like now we're kind of on a rhythm, a path with Apple where every few months we're going to see something brand new, something interesting. There'd been a time, a while, where we weren't really seeing a lot of innovation, a lot of new things. We were getting a little frustrated, and now we're kind of going through this little renaissance. One thing I do know for certain, and I think it's kind of important, is that the Apple Watch was developed after Steve Jobs, meaning that not a product that was on the drawing board while he was still alive. And I think that's probably a really important thing to keep in mind about where Apple is and where it's going.
I think those are all great points. So join us in the future where we will be talking more about the Apple Watch, the new MacBook, everything else. We've got another month and a half before this thing is going to be out, so there's a lot of time to digest all that. And obviously there are going to be plenty of other things happening in the world of tech and plenty of opportunity for you to sound off about what you think about the Apple Watch and the MacBook. Let us know. You can use the hashtag MashTalk to let us know your opinions on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Google+. Until next time, for Chris Taylor, Lance Ulanoff, and Pete Patchell, I'm Christina Warren. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.